Now, we all feel a little depressed every now and again, and recently I've been feeling a little down myself. Not much, and I assure you, emotionally, I am fine. God damn it, why? And so to help alleviate the pain, I've been listening to some bands that always make me happy. Bands like Ween, Primus, and, you guessed it, Frank Zappa. Now, as I've said before, Frank Zappa broke up the original lineup of the Mothers of Invention in 1969, largely due to a combination of financial difficulties that came with having a 9-piece band, and artistic frustrations as Zappa chafed at the musical limitations of the Mothers and aspired to surpass them and get newer and better musicians who could more fully realize his increasingly grandiose and ambitious musical visions. Now, ironically, after claiming that he had disbanded the original Mothers to focus on these new and grandiose musical visions, Frank Zappa only pursued those grandiose musical visions with their technical complexity and bombastic nature for one album, 1969's Hot Rats, which, as I covered in my earlier review, is one of the best Frank Zappa albums ever. Ironically, though, he broke up the band after that and spent the duration of 1969 and 1970 editing together bits and pieces of the Hot Rats band outtakes and old live and studio outtakes from the early Mothers days to create Burnt Weenie Sandwich and Weasels Rip My Flesh. Two amazing albums. And finally, towards the end of 1970, he got together with a new lineup of the Mothers, featuring Howard Kylan and Mark Volman of a 60s group called the Turtles. Now, I don't know anything about the Turtles. Wait, that was these guys? What the fuck, Frank Zappa? Those are two styles and philosophies of music that I don't see mixing together too well.
One for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. I can't see.
What's the ugliest part of your body?
Anyway, the era featuring Kylan and Volman, who, due to a lawsuit between themselves and the original manager, were forced to use the monikers of Flo and Eddie, is generally considered to be one of the weakest of the Zappa discography, and it begins with the album we're going to talk about today, Chunga's Revenge, in 1970. Now, Chunga's Revenge, as we're going to see, is in many ways sort of an ugly bastard of an album, cobbled together from bits and pieces left over from the various previous eras and little bits of original material from the Flo and Eddie years. But let's see. How bad can it really be? Track 1, Transylvania Boogie. Not bad at all, actually. The first track on this album is great. Transylvania Boogie opens up the album with a signature Zappa guitar riff. Very wild and crazy in the beginning before going into some more bluesy moments at the end of the song. It's an outtake, much like almost everything on this album, dating from the late Hot Rats era of early 1970. But it's fantastic. One of the best songs on this album.
Track 2, Road Ladies. Isn't that a King Crimson song?
The Road Ladies is a song about groupies, the life on the road, and many of the preoccupations that would ultimately dog the Flo and Eddie years. When Zappa spent an enormous time focusing on the lore and the culture of rock and roll in the early 70s, with such celebrated incidents as the Mud Shark and the 200 Motel.
Track 3, 20 Small Cigars.
20 Small Cigars is a really cool little jazz thing. Very much sounding like it could have come off of Hot Rats, mostly because it did, at least from the sessions. It fits in very well with something like Little Umbrellas or Blessed Relief from the Grand Wazoo, one of the less crazy, more chilled out jazz pieces Zappa produced. The Nancy and Mary music. Oh. The Nancy and Mary music is one of the longer songs on the album, ultimately lasting 8 or 9 minutes. It sort of justifies its length and kinda doesn't. It's a live piece, typical of some of the weirder live shit that the Mothers used to do, both in the original incarnation, but especially now in the Flo and Eddie years, what with weird high-pitched shrieking and the lot. There are several parts that I almost like, but as a whole, it's a little weak.
Track 5, Tell Me You Love Me.
This is a little more to my taste. Yeah, it's just a standard love song featuring Flo and Eddie, sort of using weird variations on their Turtles voices, but it's a good love song. Even though it's not, in some ways, not really a love song. But anyway, it's a good piece of music. One of the first non-ironic love songs I think Zappa had done since Reuben and the Jets. And sort of continuing that vein of nostalgia for doo-wop.
Oh baby, would you go all the way with me tonight?
Another Flo and Eddie song, and another great use of Flo and Eddie. Would You Go All the Way is a song about a subject matter that would pervade the Flo and Eddie era, and to a much lesser degree the rest of Frank Zappa's career, specifically sex. In this case with USO girls, amidst even more nostalgia for the 50s, drive-in movies, and monster movies.
It's horrible. It's scary. Oh yes, Chunga's Revenge.
The title track of Chunga's Revenge is another Hot Rats era outtake, and once again, sort of like Transylvania Boogie, there is a bluesy flair to Chunga's Revenge. Although after such sort of a bombastic opener, the actual song, when you get into it, is a little bit more downbeat and depressive than you might think. But all the same, it's a fantastic piece of music, and a real highlight of this album. Track 8, The Clap. This isn't Frank Zappa, this is a Yes song. Anyway, the real song, The Clap, is just a weird percussion piece that only lasts about a minute and a half. I think it's another outtake from the Hot Rat sessions, but it also might be from a live version of King Kong. I'm really not sure.
Come here, little boy. Rudy wants to buy you a drink.
Rudy Wants to Buy You a Drink is the third Flo and Eddie song on the album, and it's one that most people hate, but I can't toe the party line here. I love this song. I don't know why. Maybe it's the stupid little beats. Maybe it's the ridiculous voice that they use to sing the song. But it's hilarious to me, and I really like it. What else can I say?
Track 10, Charlena.
So the album ends with Charlena, and a song so good that it was one of the only songs Frank Zappa ever redid 14 years later on his Them or Us album. Musically and lyrically, it's a typical sort of breakup love song, and fits very well into that whole Reuben and the Jets sort of the Air school, freak out school of like playing homage to the classic doo-wop songs that Zappa grew up with. This album is actually pretty damn good. I don't get why so many people hate it, because I actually really like significant portions of it. There is some amazing instrumental work on here. Transylvania Boogie, 20 Small Cigars, certain sections of the Nancy and Mary music, Chunga's Revenge, and to a lesser degree The Clap are all intriguing little instrumental pieces. And the Flo and Eddie stuff, is not bad at all. Tell Me You Love Me, Would You Go All the Way, and Charlena are excellent songs on their own, and Rudy Wants to Buy You a Drink is a decent guilty pleasure song. The only thing on here that is terrible is the Nancy and Mary music and to some degree the clap, but the other stuff is really good. Oh, and Road Ladies is good too. I forgot about that. And so Chunga's Revenge is, to me, a very underrated album. Easily the best of the Flo and Eddie period for me, at least on the grounds of the instrumentation. And if you're like me and have a prejudice against live albums, this is all you're going to get for studio releases, because this, as I mentioned at the beginning, cobbled together ugly bastard of a release, is the only studio album that ever got put out from the Flo and Eddie era. So anyway, have a good night, everybody, and listen to Frank Zappa.